I'm Tef James, bitch. God damn.
Blog Talk Radio. Welcome to Blog Talk Radio. Please hold and you will be able to listen to the show.
Right now, I'm actually about to bring in my next guest, which is my man Ikon. Now, just a little refresher from the beginning of the show. I had mentioned a little bit about him. Born in Southwest Texas, 1961, was singing, mainly in church choirs at a young age, but then, discovered R&B. And, then, like I said, he's been in a bunch of different groups and stuff. This dude is definitely a hip-hop, pretty much like a legend. All right, and, as I said before, the guy that I had on a few weeks ago there, Teflon James, this was the gentleman that actually called in to talk to Teflon. He kind of became, his mentor, his role model, so Teflon James, again, that's the record that I spun just a little while ago there, Redefining Success. These two had a really, really nice, relationship, what I'm saying? It was good because Teflon needed somebody to look up to, I think, and Ikon needed somebody to mentor, and again, that's how Teflon ended up getting connected with, Bone Thugs and having those opportunities that he had. So it's a definitely good relationship that the two had. So I'm gonna bring on my man Ikon right now. Just open up the mic. Ikon, are you with us, pal?
Yes, sir. I'm right here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear, man. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing fine, man. I'm blessed to be in a position to talk to you tonight.
Oh, no, thank you, man. It's definitely cool to have you call in. We've been getting some really, really good people on the show lately. I know you heard probably part of the last guest, their Fire Nation, super impressive.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
And I can't stress it enough that, what she just said, stay hungry and stay humble couldn't be more true. You know what I'm saying? No matter how big you get, no matter how far you go, staying humble is the key, man. And I know you know about that because, like I said, I've had the pleasure of speaking with you a couple of times here, and you've been nothing but just the coolest dude. You know what I mean? So I want to say thank you personally for coming on to this show, man.
Oh, I appreciate it, man. It's my honor, actually, man. You guys are a little too kind with your words, that legend part. But hey, I am what I am, and I've been in this game a long time. If you couldn't do the math that I was born in 61, I'm 57 years old. But, yeah, it's been, my pleasure, man. I've been looking forward to the interview, actually. So I'm honored to be here tonight.
Oh, yeah, no, we really appreciate it. Now, I'm gonna start with a pretty, simple question. When you started, in the church choirs and stuff, when you were really, really young, what was it that made you transition from that and get into the actual music industry?
Well, like you mentioned, I started very early, my grandmother being a minister as well as Big Mama, I was kind of looped into that church thing at an early age. And so it was imperative that I be there, come what may. So I just learned to love the music, the sound of the church music first and foremost. But, we, through some family situations, we migrated to California like in the early 70s. And I always had a love for R&B, but back in the Southwest Texas, you didn't get a lot of R&B. Only on Sundays you got to listen to James Brown and Wilson Pickett and things like that, But, when we transitioned to L.A., man, I mean, it opened up a whole new world for me as far as music goes. And I instantly fell in love with, the groups, the Dramatics, the Stylistics, Delphonics. I could go on and on with the groups, man, but... and I just wanted to be a part of that, man. I fell in love with that whole sound, lyrics. And that's how you got girls, too, so.
Yeah. Yeah, man, I could definitely agree with that, nowadays. Now, back when I first started, what I'm saying, it was a little bit different, but it's actually funny you say that because I saw it was on Facebook. This was probably a few years ago, but I saw this meme. It said, what you expect when you get into the music industry. And it had a guy with a bunch of chicks around him. And then it said versus what you actually get. And it was a guy with somebody on the phone with him hey, bro, you want to collab with me? which is funny because when you first get into it, that's what actually does happen. Is where you just get all these people, all these other artists. Hey, let's collab, man. It's I didn't want this. I don't want all dudes hitting me up. It's I got into this game to get some chicks here.
Yeah, and if you bless somewhere along the way, if you live long enough, you'll get to experience both of them, maybe a couple of times over.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty true, actually. So now you ended up, getting affiliated with Death Row and like some pretty serious people, in this industry, So why don't you tell us, a little bit about that journey, like from going to the church choir, then I know you went through a bunch of different groups, and then coming to Death Row. Like, what was that journey really like?
Well, like I said, we kind of started out singing in the hallways at Compton High School. Me and some of my buddies that went to school with me and grew up on the same street with me. Shout out to Kenneth Archie, Michael Johnson, and Mr. Coco. But anyway, we just kind of knew we was gonna do that for a living, that music thing, and so we kind of got this thing going. It was a tribute to Motown where we started forming different groups and what have you. But it's hard to keep about 25 young black men and women together, in that period when you wasn't paying them. You was just trying to get something up and going. And when that kind of fizzled, by luck, as fate would have it, I was at a party one night, and anytime I was at a party and heard a song that I knew, well, I'm grooving, man. I'm on the floor and I'm getting busy. You know what I say? And because, like I say, I'm trying to go home with something, maybe even. But anyway, long story short, through an acquaintance, I got introduced to some guys, Mr. Reginald Fun, who had a friend, Mr. Kevin Collins, who was an affiliate of Death Row. He was already plugged in with Suge. He was good friends. And so he heard our group, and he introduced us, and they gave us a producer, young lady by the name of Shara Jones. And, we were in the process of being signed. We would show up on Wednesdays and Saturdays, and we would do our thing. And so one night while in the studio up at Can-Am Productions in Tarzana, the producer said, "Hey, wait a minute, guys." And so we were in the booth, and so she said, "Listen, come up in the engineer's booth. I got good news and bad news." Well, we go up in the booth, and we say, "Well, give us the bad news first." She said, "Well, the bad news is we got to shut down the session for the night." And we like, "Okay, is that it?" And she's like, "Yeah." She said, "What the good news is, the reason why we got someone coming in, and the only studio that they'll record out of is this particular one. And it happens to be Tupac. And if you guys want to hang around and meet him, then feel free." Well, that was a no-brainer, And so we hung out long enough to actually bump fists with him and nod our heads and, watch him go to work. And speaking of work, I had to leave after about 40 minutes of that. But, through that, I got connected in with him. And it was a brief connection because, sometimes misunderstandings occur between people and feelings get in the way. And then sometimes when you're dealing with certain type of people, you got to be careful about your feelings.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely true. And I think, man, that's crazy, man. If I was ever sitting in the studio, back when in those days, if I was sitting in the studio and somebody walked in and said, "We got to shut your session down because Tupac is coming," I'd be like, "Well, I'd be like, you're ribbing me, right? Like, this is a joke."
Yeah.
I don't think I believe him. I'd be like, "No," I'm like, "No, you're just messing with me, right?" It's like, and then you see, I mean, like, what was it like when he actually walked in? Like, were you like starstruck, or was it just kind of normal? Like, what was it like when he actually walked in the door?
I was a grown ass man, and so I was trying to hold my composure, to tell you the truth.
Right.
Even though I was the biggest fan, you know what I mean? So, I've always been known as a kind of laid back, cool kind of guy. So I just kind of kept my composure, but it was an honor. I mean, I was looking at a legend, even at that time. I considered him a legend. And so, I'd seen Suge, he walks through with his motorcycle helmet and his cigar, but just, Tupac, that was a whole nother level for me. And, like I said, it was a brief account, but, it stuck with me,
Yeah, that's pretty amazing, man. Like like I said, man, I don't think I'd believe them if they ever said that to me. So now after that whole experience, when you parted way with Death Row, like I'm not going to get into like the reason why or anything, but after that, you ended up getting signed with Cold Funky Records. And you were a songwriter and an A&R with them. Is that right?
Yeah, I kind of fell into the whole A&R thing, but I was always good at hearing a melody or a beat and coming up with a hook pretty much instantly. And the way we wrote in the group normally was, we'd all get a cassette at that time. Then we graduated to CDs to go home to write to. And then 4 guys later, you know, when we come back to rehearsals, normally everybody agreed that my hook was the best. And so we went with it and we'd write around that. And so, you know, I just kind of, after that, I just decided, hey, man, you know, I can do my own thing, you know, because, you know, these groups sometimes they fall apart, you know, due to various reasons. And, you know, when you're dealing with more than just you, you know, it's hard to be humble sometimes on certain situations. But I say that to say this. So I eventually met these guys through a friend that said that somebody needed a background singer for some recording. And so I went over and we recorded a version of Slipping Into Darkness. It actually was called Tricking Into Darkness with Spice T. And it was tight, you know what I mean? It was a version of War Slipping Into Darkness. And through that, you know, I formed a relationship with the guys, and it was Mr. Philip Anderson, better known as Knowledge, and Carlos G, Mr. Carlos Gettings, shout out. But, you know, through them, I started working with them as a songwriter, and they, you know, signed me to a development deal, basically, you know, to do an album within a year or so. And they seen I was a little more advanced than that. And so practically they looked around and they said, you know what, one day they said to me, they said, you know what, practically everyone who works at this label is here because of you, either directly or indirectly. At that time, we had Teflon and Gambino, we had Christy Douglas, we had Eye Candy, you know, and there was a couple other people there, Tiana. But long story short, so they say, we might as well put you in charge of A&R. And man, I'd heard the term, but I didn't know what it consisted of. But I tried to work my way into the position. And, you know, then along came, like I said, Teflon and Gambino. And, you know, it was good. You know, it was good for a while.
Yeah, that's good, man. And, you know, it's a good story, you know, the way that I kind of see it and interpret it. The story between you and Teflon is really great. And the reason why, it almost reminds me a little bit of Daniel and Miyagi, or like Rocky and Mickey. You know what I'm saying? Where it's like, you know, you got to take somebody
now. Yeah,
so, well, it's like you kind of take somebody under your wing like that.
Yeah, no doubt.
You show them the ropes. You know, I think it's a great story, man. I really do.
Oh, I mean, it was a no-brainer for me. You know, and to be honest with you, you know, I was trying to get paid as well in the game. And, you know, at that time, Eminem, I don't know if he was out or not, but all I heard was when my coworker, you know, Teflon's dad, Mr. Jerry Monroe Sr., told me he had a son, and I figured out the son looked like him, that loved hip-hop. Well, I had to meet this son, and, you know, that started the ball rolling. And, you know, we just kind of fell in love with each other, you know, through the music, man. And, you know, the friendship formed after that. And so shout out Gambino. But, you know, like I said, I wouldn't have had it no other way. Like I said, you know, in my bio, that as a young man, I love hanging out with the older guys, you know, because I liked being mentored. And I, you know, like guys telling me stuff that stick with me and stuck with me. And just, you know, as I got older, you know, and through life's journey, you know, I became more of a mentor type. I gravitated more toward the younger guys, you know, because I felt like I had a story to tell, and I had, you know, a history to where sometimes it's hard to get somebody to listen, you know, to you about football when you ain't never played a day in your life or coached a day in your life, you know. But somebody that's been through something, you know, they're more willing to sit and lend an ear possibly. And so, you know, God has been good to me. And so even though I've had my journey to where it's been some ups and downs and some ins and outs, I'll say, you know, God is still good. And at 57, the dream is not deferred, it's still alive, you know, and as long as I'm alive, I'm going to keep hope alive, as they say, you know.
Yeah.
And it's through young guys like Teflon.
Yeah, and you know, that's something that I actually started doing too. Was, I mean, I'm not an old man or anything, but you know, I feel like I have enough time in now. Like I've been doing music for about 14 years now, whereas like I know when something's good, I know when something's bad, I know what to watch out for and what to look for now. I kind of know when something is a scam at this point. Like, is there so many people in the industry that just are out there to scam people out of money and things like that. So like now, like I have certain young guys hitting me up where it's like, they'll, hey, like check this out, like listen to this. You know, you give them some constructive criticism. You know, some of them can't take it, some of them can. You know what I mean? But it's like, you know, I'm like, if I even think that I need work, you know what I'm saying? Like I need to, you know, still keep polishing my skills. I know somebody that's been in the game for 5 months. that here, listen to this record, it's not going to be great. You know what I'm saying? And that's what you got to tell them. So like, don't get discouraged. Like, you know, do
Right.
this. Like, focus on your rhyming, focus on your technique. Like, learn your craft. Don't worry about collaborations.
Exactly.
Don't worry about making videos. Don't even worry about recording. I'm like, write more. I'm
Right.
making math and get good at the craft. You know what I'm saying?
Right. All right. No doubt, man. I mean, 14 years. I mean, you know, you got a story. 14 years is 14 years, my brother. And, you know, you're never too young to reach out and help someone, you know, through, you know, just a kind gesture or a kind word or just a word of encouragement, you know. And that other thing you talked about, being able to recognize the scams, well, you know, that's a God-given thing. That's what they call discernment. You know, and the Bible talks about it, says, you know, if you want discernment, you got to pray for it and ask for it, and he'll give it to you, you know. And so it's been, you've done good, my brother, and, you know, you're continuing to do good things. You know, I was listening to you earlier, you know, some of the things that you've managed to accomplish to this point, and, you know, it's a beautiful thing, man, and I'm glad to have met you, you know, and hopefully, you know, we can, you know, collaborate in the future on some other things, if it ain't nothing but just mentoring somebody.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I would definitely love to. I'll send you a few records or something. Maybe we can make something happen.
No doubt. Hey, you know my boy Teflon, he got my back. Anything you need, you know, go through him for right now till I kind of get up and, you know, caught up with my technology, we'll say.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, no problem. But
Yes,
listen,
sir.
I got my film director. My film director actually did call in. I'm going to bring her on here in a second. So we're going to wrap this
Okay.
up. But before we do, if there's any last words of advice or any contact information or anything that you want to throw out, please do, man.
Yeah, well, you know, like I said, anything that anyone needs me from, go through Teflon James. He's hooked up on YouTube and everything. And so other than that, I just want to shout out my late wife, Miss Lysandra Hines. Today's her birthday. I lost her 3 years ago. Shout out to my daughters, Monique, Dominique, Trinity, to all my brothers and sisters out there. You know, just, you know, your journey is what it is. You know, we all got a different path that we take. And sometimes, you know, the dream is just deferred. It's not dead, you know. So it's about longevity sometimes. You know, it's about stick-to-itiveness. And so basically I'm saying don't give up and don't let nobody defer your dream. You got to always believe first. And if you believe, then, hey, good things will start to happen. That's me for the night, bro.
Excellent, man. Thank you very much for being on the show, man. I'll be in touch with you soon, all right?
All right. Thank you for having me, man.
You got it. Later on, man.
Later.
All right, everybody. We're going to cut to a quick commercial break, and then when we come back, I'm going to bring on my film director and really close friend, Miss Jill Camillo. Stay with us right after this.
For those of you who still love to read a good book, the godfather of urban fiction, Omar Tyree, who gave us many urban classics like Fly Girls, Just Say No, Leslie, For the Love of Money, Diary of a Groupie, Sweet St. Louis, What They Want, and The Last Street Novel.